Hello there, everyone. So, welcome back to another week of me, Canon, and how I paint the minis I paint over at the Small Talk podcast. So, this week we are painting the Sagittar. The Sagittar is a big, stonking chicken walker of a mech for the game Battletech. Which is a game I have not played much of, but the Sagittar is a really cool model, and I'm very excited to paint it. Very industrial to me. It looks very... I like the geometry of the thing. I like how it's basically just legs with a box that holds guns. It's very kind of... reminiscent of like 40K dreadnoughts in that regard, but with its own differences. So after base coating it black, I'm running some very, very thin downed Caliban green from Citadel through the airbrush to get the initial base coats on this thing. What I used as my inspiration for this paint job was the green gray with like the shark smile paint job on like P-51 escort fighters from the Second World War. Look pictures up of those if you've never seen one. They're I don't know if they were all painted like that. I would assume not, but they're pretty cool looking. I don't do the freehand for shark jaws on this one, although I definitely should do that on a mini in the future. But I do some freehanding later on in the video that I greatly enjoy. So now I'm going to go in with a lighter green from Privateer Press and oh so gently brighten up that Caliban green. It's kind of more of an olive from less of like that deep forest green to more of that kind of camo olive that you're probably more familiar with, especially if you play a lot of historicals for tanks or fatigues or stuff like that. I've been experimenting with a lot of P3 paints and inks recently, and the P3 range is pretty dope. That would be my review of it. Is pretty dope. So now I've gone in here and we're starting to do the gray part of this gray underbelly. Now, granted, this thing does not fly. Well, I think it might have jetpacks. I don't know. I've never played the game. But this thing is not an aircraft. It's a mech. So it having, the very nature-inspired dark top, light underbelly, not really relevant, but nevertheless, that's what I decided to go with. Now what I'm doing here is just kind of touching up that more olive color around the mech. And now we're going to go in and do some edge highlighting with an airbrush, something I'm very new at, highlighting with an airbrush and just trying to get those green edges a little brighter and catching where the sun will really hit, assuming it's coming down straight from above on this model. So now we're going to do some stripes. Love me some stripes. The plane that I'm basing this off had yellow stripes on the wings, so you might see some kind of stripy bits. We are going to paint those in yellow. However, before we can do that, I'm using Old Reliable here. This is Menoth White Base from P3. It is quickly becoming my favorite off-white. if I have to do anything that builds up to white, or I have to do bone or antlers or cream colored fabric, pretty much anything that kind of needs a warmer white tone to it, I'm going to start with this. It's a really good paint, covers very well, thins very easily. I highly recommend it, and I do in all the videos that I use it in because it's that good. So now that we have that done, I am going to get the hatch that I'm going to do some freehanding on. At least I think it's a hatch. I'm not really sure what this top circly bit on the Sagittar is supposed to be, but I figured this would be a good place to emulate the good old white star on a navy blue field that you see on a lot of kind of World War II era prop fighter planes. So we just went in with some Exile Blue here and covered it. And then before we come back to the freehand, I elected to go in and just use a pretty lazy technique that I like using to do lenses and glass, which is paint them metallic and then tint them with ink or contrasts later. I think that really works for kind of giving a reflective surface feel on a pretty quick time investment, rather than building up how light would hit the glass and doing different reflections and all that sorts of stuff. So this is a pretty quick and dirty way to do glass, especially tinted glass. Yeah. So as I was saying, I don't really know a lot about the minis for this range, but I've looked at more of them. They look very cool. And this one was a joy to paint, especially because I didn't have to assemble it. It just pops right out of the box. You do some mold lines, clean up, and it's ready to rock and roll. And it paints very well. So now we're going to go back into those kind of off-white, Menoth white base stripes, and we're going to use some Zealot yellow from the Army Painters speed paints, and we are just going to fill those in and get a nice kind of warm yellow that's going to mesh very well with how this robot looks, and kind of give him those flying stripes on different parts. I also use the yellow to do the cockpit, so it has a reflective yellow cockpit. This is unintentionally reminding me a lot of baseball. The scheme kind of looks like the Oakland A's, and his cockpit visor kind of looks like, Ray-Bans on a professional baseball player. So now I am going to go in here and I'm going to do a bit of freehand. I'm going to do the good old flying star. I don't know what you call this, but it's on a lot of planes. So if you do know what this particular insignia on United States aircraft from that time period in military history, did it mean anything? Or was it just kind of something to symbolize that, yep, those planes are flying for the U.S. So don't shoot at them, aircraft carrier they're landing on. I'm not sure. But freehanding it was essentially, I sketched a series of lines in a gray, and then I would fill in this star so you couldn't see the blue. And then I would gradually add in more and more of a pure white to this mixture until we get something pretty close to a pure white. If you are someone who is beginning painting and you want to paint something white, unless you have an airbrush and a white primer, never attempt to just glop pure white paint on something. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. So we're going to kind of jump ahead a little bit, and I'm going to start dry brushing the areas where I think we will see the red hot laser energy that the Sagittar's weapons use kind of heating the robot up. Because from what I understand of talking with TJ, who knows more about Battletech than I do, the Sagittar has giant laser beam weapons, so it gets very, very hot. But I guess the upside of laser beam weapons is they don't have to carry ammo, and there's not as bad of a chance of them just, exploding when you get hit because you're carrying a jillion missiles. I think these are also, I settled on jump packs or something, so on his feet, so I painted those as well to kind of show energy, glowing white hot on these areas. It's a pretty simple, quick and dirty OSL with some red ink from Privateer. And I enjoy how it looks. I think it looks nice and kind of fire engine red. It looks nice and hot on this little model here. Inks are really something I've enjoyed using. I pick some up, either Artist Inks, Privateer sells some that are pretty good. I cannot recommend them enough. So that's what it looks like now that all the red's done. And now I'm going to mix up a bit of a pin wash made from, I think it was 2 parts Coelia Green Shade to 1 part Agrax Earth Shade to kind of make a dirty green to put in the recesses and really make those panel lines pop and kind of darken down the model. Because as much as I love bright poppy cartoon colors, and I still think that this model has plenty bright poppy cartoon colors, this is a quote unquote practical engine of war in a distant future, and I wanted to kind of give it that more industrial military look. Trust me, next week with the model we're painting, you'll get plenty of cartoon color next week, I assure you. And now we're going to come to always kind of the last, final, and one of my favorite steps, generally, basing the Mini. So as you can see here, I've painted the miniature's base gray to better kind of suit this color of texture paste that we're putting on. And I'm putting on some ground texture from Vallejo, as you saw earlier there, with a sculpting tool. It's kind of this really neat little kind of pumice ashy gray ground texture that I really dig. It dries a lot clearer though than if you just you really got to glop it on. Like I kind of wanted a gray rubble ashy look, so that's why I'm glopping it on so much. But then kind of, as you can see, it dries kind of translucent. So yeah, that's the video, and that's the good old Sagittar. It's a chicken walker with some really fun laser guns on it and some, World War II flying ace inspiration. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.